Now, my panel today consists of people who are assisting us in the Pacific to support our efforts to making this major transformation possible. And they'll introduce themselves a little bit more before they begin their presentations, but I'd like to first of all explain the flow of our presentation today. So my first guest speaker will be Callum Hanforth. He's going to right beside me, who's our UNDP collaborator for us in the Cook Islands, and we're working to get towards developing our digital transformation strategy, which will set up a roadmap for the Cook Islands government to establish digital services for its citizens. And UNDP has established themselves as strong supporters of this initiative across the Pacific, and Callum will be able to tell us more about his work just in a few minutes as soon as I finish. And my next guest speaker is Jeff Montgomery, to his right, who was formerly New Zealand's Registrar General of Births, Deaths and Marriages, and who recently took on a new role as the Civil Registration Advisor at the Pacific Community, or SPC. And that organisation supports 22 countries and territories across the Pacific region. And one of these countries, of course, that he's been working in has been the Cook Islands, and our special interest in digital identities, which is just one of his new roles within the region. And my final guest speaker will be Nicole Chen, who is an industrial lawyer and currently the Vice Chair of the Digital Transformation Association of Taiwan. And Nicole is a fellow .Asia board member, I just have to mention that. And I was keen to have her join this session because of her long time involvement in digital transformation in Taiwan, whose solid foundation in digital developments has supported rapid economic development within their country. So this is a good model for us in the Pacific. But before we actually start, I just thought that I'd give you an introduction to our session with us by starting off to give you a brief introduction into our journey in the Cook Islands towards digital transformation. And it all started for us in February of this year when I was invited by the ICT unit of the Office of the Prime Minister to organise 3 half-day-long sessions of stakeholder workshops that were going to be coordinated by UNDP. And it was progressing fine until the day of the event when we found that Callum, who was going to take the workshop, was still in Singapore. Due to his flight being cancelled, so that he was not going to arrive in time to do our workshop. However, being the trooper that we were to find him to be, he was prepared to take the 3 daily sessions virtually. This was an effort in itself, which was really creditable, but he was also contending with time zones. And so such was his commitment that for the 3 mornings of the sessions, for a start time of 9 a.m. on Rarotonga, for Callum this was 3 a.m. in Singapore. And he took the sessions until 6 a.m. his time, as if in person. And he had our utmost admiration. But, one of the things about the group that we were working with, when I sent out the invitations to the heads of government departments and to our leaders of business and community groups, I specifically asked that they send people who were actually interested in creating more digital processes and products within their organisation that might help take the Cook Islands towards something becoming more digitally enabled. So we had people from all sectors of the community, and such was the interest that Callum was able to maintain by the presentations and the breakout group activities that he organised from his virtual platform, and which Joseph Mulipola from UNDP Samoa and I coordinated on the ground in the workshop room on Rarotonga. But our attendees were so impressed that they all attended on each of the 3 mornings as planned, ready for each of the consultation activities that took place. But from this initial consultation, Callum produced a digital readiness assessment for the Cook Islands based on the discussions that we'd had, coupled with the results of a survey that was undertaken during the consultation session, plus other information that he gathered from other related activities. And the assessment was, I think it did on slides, and there were 68 slides. So it was a really comprehensive, very impressive summary of where the Cook Islands sits on the continuum of digital readiness. But, you know, pleased to know, Callum finally made it to the Cook Islands last week. And we held 2 more stakeholder sessions, one for the general community, which was really well attended, and probably more so since our Prime Minister asked if he could launch our new ICT policy at the event, because he saw how aligned the digital readiness assessment was with the new policy, and also his own perception of development of digital transformation in the Cook Islands. This was a major breakthrough for us, that he, as the Minister of Telecommunications and ICT, and his Chief of Staff, who is in charge of our office, are both very much behind this new venture for us. So we really do want to make it happen, and we want it to work for us as well. But the second session was that we held was a short 2-hour high-level presentation to government heads of ministries and officials, as well as the leaders of our banking community who play an important role with regards to our economic development. At this session, the leaders were introduced not only to the ICT policy, which was presented by the Chief of Staff too, that was quite interesting, but also our e-commerce, I have a copy here, our e-commerce acceleration work plan, which has just been completed and is also actually aligned with a regional initiative that's been coordinated by the Pacific Islands Forum of Government Leaders. And they were also introduced to Callum in his digital readiness assessment. But taking these 3 new developments to the heads of our ministries and our community leaders provided a great session of discussion that really did exemplify the importance of communication and stakeholder consultation at all levels before you can embark on something as important and as transformational as this in an island community. And so for this reason, I really appreciate that we've been given this opportunity to share the stage with others from the Cook Islands, from the Pacific region, the Asian community, as well as an international organisation, to demonstrate how broadly inclusive we in the Pacific need to be to ensure that we successfully achieve our goals for the future of our small Pacific nations. So from there, to our other speakers, I have some questions that I want to pose to each of my panellists to respond to, and following their presentations, we'll open the floor to the audience for their questions. So my first question is to Callum, it's UNDP has been really supportive of digital transformation across the Pacific, even when it is known that there are still practical challenges for many of our small island nations. So what are you seeing happening in this area within the APAC region and the world in general that can perhaps help us to progress with this project?
Thank you, Maureen, and a very, very generous introduction. Thank you, and good morning, everyone. So I'm Callum. I'm a global digital advisor at UNDP, the UN Development Programme. We work across about 170 countries and territories around the world, and I think in every country and territory, digital is a real driver, but also a challenge in some aspects as well. I'm just going to walk you through a few trends that we're seeing around the world, and very happy to pick up questions around these as well. The first is what is being increasingly known as the Twin Technology Challenge. The Twin Tech Challenge is essentially how do you build fundamental digital foundations, so digital public infrastructure, digital inclusion and other aspects, but also keep half an eye on the emerging technologies so countries aren't left behind. So that Twin Tech piece is increasingly driving a lot of discussion and debate and action in many of the countries that we work in. The second point to highlight is we're increasingly seeing a shift away from individual solutions to broader ecosystem development. So how do we involve digital from government, the private sector, civil society including aspects like academia, R&D, and other aspects too, to really make this a whole of society effort to ensure that no one is left behind. I'd also want to talk to a few topics that we've heard definitely in the course of this week so far, and that we see in our work as well, is very much this, the importance of tackling the digital divide. We've known about this for many, many years. There's real issues around obviously foundational connectivity. Many people remain offline, often women and girls as well. But then we're also seeing broader challenges around this digital divide too. The first is funding and financing. So many countries lack sustained digital funding. And then if you look into the private sector, there are populations, again, sadly, often women, who are often underfunded for their developments, their products, their services. So for example, if you're a female founder, then you're much more unlikely to get VC funding in many regions than if you're a male VC team. This inequality, I think there's also risks that we're seeing it being entrenched and exacerbated. The metaverse is a really interesting example of this. When this launched 2 years ago, you had a land grab of often quite rich prospectors going online and buying up a lot of the metaverse. So there's also kind of risk that we're kind of creating and entrenching new inequalities as new technology develops as well. In the region, we're also doing quite a lot of work on tackling disinformation and misinformation. So last month, we launched a big project across Tonga, the Solomon Islands, Fiji, and Micronesia, looking at how we can work with civil society to tackle the growing challenges of disinformation. In many countries that we're speaking to and working in, issues around COVID-19 misinformation, cyberbullying, harassment, online scams, this stuff is becoming more and more pervasive. And it's great that countries get increased connectivity, but then this increased connectivity can also accelerate the pace and the challenge of some of these harms as well. Just before I wrap up, I'd like to end on a slightly more positive note than the disinformation side. Two aspects to highlight. Firstly, we're seeing some really exciting new ways of thinking. So elements like donut economics, where we're looking beyond just measurements of GDP and looking at broader welfare and other aspects, particularly in the context of digital, are really exciting. We're also seeing a focus on what we call lean data. So not just big data, but the lives and livelihoods behind data points. Like how do we spend time with users to actually understand how digital is having an impact? And then also we're very keen to talk to countries more about what we're seeing, a concept called environment-centered design. So moving beyond just the user and looking at actually how digital impacts on the environment. And there's some really exciting stuff here where we're seeing where, for example, websites being powered by solar power to reduce cloud emissions, design of websites to make them draw down less data and less power. So there's a really exciting movement here that we see has really exciting potential. And then finally, just to land on that last point, is the potential that we see for digital in the region and beyond. We're seeing digital really transform how governments are delivering services. We're seeing digital create new products, new services, new industries, new opportunities, new lives and livelihoods, which is really exciting. For us at the UN, 70% of the SDGs have a strong digital foundation, and the other 30% could be benefit by digital as well. And then also we're seeing real appetite from people about the potential of digital. Maureen mentioned the Digital Readiness Assessment. This is a product at UNDP that we've ran across about 16 small island states now. It also includes a public survey where we actually ask the public, do you see efforts of digital in your country being bold? And actually many members of the public want their governments and their other partners to be even bolder. So we see this really, really exciting license and appetite for even deeper, more accelerated and more expansive digital transformation as well. You know, I'll pause there, but very happy to answer any questions about this or our work more broadly. Thank you.
I'll ask you your question. Got to get to it first. I mentioned before how Jeff is now working in sort of like a real flash job in SBC. But Jeff, from a transformational perspective, a national identity system, which has been a very strong interest of mine for a long time, and I realise it's already been proposed for several Pacific Island states to enable citizens to more easily and securely access government online services. But in reality, is this a simple tool to develop for a small island state? And what are the enabling conditions that would need to be in place to make it successful?
Thanks, Maureen. By way of introduction, my name is Jeff Montgomery. I'm currently the Civil Registration and Vital Statistics Advisor for the Pacific Community, which is a membership-based organisation that provides scientific and technical advice to 22 states and territories across the Pacific. And previously I was for 10 years the Registrar General of Births, Deaths and Marriages in New Zealand. So in answering the question, I kind of draw on those two pieces of experience. Over the 10 years that I was in the role in New Zealand, we managed to move almost all of our services 100% online. So the ability to register a birth and get a birth certificate, with the exception of the certificate itself, is entirely online in New Zealand. The ability to apply for a passport or renew a passport, again, fully online, and to become a New Zealand citizen. That can also now be done entirely online. So we achieved quite a lot. However, the thing that was really difficult, and we never quite achieved before I finished, was a digital online identity. That's particularly difficult to achieve, even in a country like New Zealand, where you need both a high level of uptake by the population to make it economical. So you need lots of New Zealanders, in that case, to be using a digital identity. And to get that, you need lots of organisations who require that digital identity to access services on a regular basis. And without both of those components, we didn't get there. So for those of you who might be from New Zealand, you'll be familiar with RealMe, the challenges with RealMe, which is a digital government online identity, struggled for those three reasons. But drawing on my work in the Pacific community, a key enabler for all of this is civil registration systems. So most people won't know the technical term. Most of you will know it more as births, deaths and marriages. And it's essentially the continuous, permanent, compulsory and universal registering of key life events. That's the United Nations definition of it. It's a multi-agency approach. So it's not one agency. It usually starts in the health sector when an event occurs, such as a birth or a death, and then transfers into a civil registration agency. And then the product of that, the data or the identity credentials, are then used by a number of different agencies across government, whether that be the voting enrolment system, passports, school enrolments. The health services will often use the civil registration data for their planning, for their service delivery, and ultimately for the identity of the citizens in the country. For the system to work well, it needs to have both ends of the spectrum. It needs to be a birth system for registering babies, but also a death registration system. So an opening and a closing of the identity. Most countries in the Pacific do not have good coverage of both of those systems. So of the 22 countries and territories in the Pacific, it ranges from 15% birth registration, so less than 1 in 10, 15% to 100%. And for death registration, it's even worse. It ranges from 2% in a country like Papua New Guinea, also up to 100% in other countries such as the Cook Islands would be an example of a country which is up at 100%. But many other countries float around the 70 to 80% mark. So that means that the populations don't have legally recognised identities. And in countries such as Papua New Guinea, for example, it's really uncertain how many people live in the country because you don't have a count at the start through the birth registration, and you don't have a count at the end through death registration. So there's three broad approaches that we're taking to address this in the Pacific. So for countries like Papua New Guinea, the key focus is on completeness and coverage of the system. And it's pretty basic. It's about getting out there and getting babies registered and having deaths registered as well. And a key technology component of that is mobile kits. So in places like Papua New Guinea, it's about getting 400 kits, using people like UNDP and other agencies to fund those kits to go out to the villages and islands and actually register babies and adults in the villages. In other countries, such as the work we're doing in Niue and the Cook Islands, it's around moving a well-operating paper-based system online. So the work we're doing in Niue at the moment is moving from a largely paper-based system to an electronic system, and having those systems interoperable between the different parts of government. So having the data flow electronically from the health system to the civil registration system and on to other agencies. And then the third area is for places like New Zealand, which already has a strong online service, and it's around joining up services. So we have a product called Smart Start, which is a product that parents use from the point that they learn that they're pregnant, for the 9 months of the pregnancy, and right through the child's first 6 years to do all of the services they require for that child. So health information, birth registration, enrolling in school, the whole digital identity journey for that child is done online. So to answer your question, Maureen, the key enablers, firstly, legislation needs to be in place to ensure that civil registration is occurring. You need community engagement, so you need members of the public actually engaging in that system and doing what they need to do to register their babies or to record their deaths. And then the final part is the technology to do that. So it's a three-legged stool. And yeah. I'll leave it there. Happy to answer any questions about anything later. Thanks.
Nicole, one of the biggest gaps that prevents Pacific nations from easily engaging in digital transformation is the lack of an enabling environment, and that includes legislation. What do you think Pacific governments need to know before they can even start to think about implementing a digital transformation strategy? And how would you recommend that they go about identifying what is required?
Thank you, Maureen. Good morning, everyone. I'm Nicole Chen from Taiwan. It's my honor to be here to share some experience for Taiwan at the works of digital transformation. I'm going to use a few slides. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Actually, as our panelist has mentioned that. I have already participated some international project relating to bridge the digital divide and create the digital opportunity for a long time, including the APEC Digital Opportunity Center project. Yeah, so I visited PNG twice. Yeah, it's a very special experience. Yeah, so for Taiwan, there is maybe the experience is a little bit different from other countries, but I think it can take as an example. Yeah, in Taiwan, there is a national scale digital transformation program. We named it Digital Nation and Innovation Economic Development Program. Yet not only limited to the digital transformation, but also we need to cultivate our innovation and for the digital economy development goal. So we set up some goals, including the digitalization. It means the optimizing the communication network, and the innovation, expanding digital economy, and the governance. I think this one is most important, yeah, because we need to set up some mechanism and make the regulation and legislative, of course, including the data governance and some other essential legislation. And another one is the inclusion. We need to focus on the social impact and pay attention to the equal digital right for every citizen. So you can see on the slide the aims of course, I share some experience about the industrial digital transformation, but it also can suit for the government digital transformation. The aims is to, at the national level, we would like to developing a digital economy, and the industry level, moving up to the value chain, yeah. And the enterprise level, we need to cultivate a globally competitive digitalized enterprise for individual enterprise. So there are a few key successful factors we are focusing. The first one is the information. Yeah, because we need to improving awareness of the culture of the current digital status. I think it is very important for digital transformation to transform. It's all about the mindset transformation. Maybe the technology is not the most important issue. Yeah, I think the mindset is most important. So recognizing the benefits from digital transformation is important. So we need to promote awareness. And the second one is the leadership and the strategy. I think the digital transformation is not only the works for the MIS, but it's for the high level leadership, including the government and the enterprise. So new digital mindset, and we need to set up the blueprint and the roadmap for digital transformation, even for the country or for the nation or for the single enterprise. And the resources, of course, we need resources to do this kind of works. So adapting emerging digital technologies, we need to reallocate all the resources and the funding issues, as our panelists has already mentioned, that maybe including the international funding and VC and others. And fourth, the digital skills. Yeah, the digital transformation is a journey, not only a work or a program. So we need to cultivate our people internally or externally, and set up so many capacity building works for every participants. Yeah, so upskill talents and appropriate training program. Yeah, so right now in Taiwan, we set up so many programs, even in the government or in the enterprise. Yeah, and the fifth, the cross-industry coordination. Yeah, because the digital transformation is kind of a paradigm shift for industry. It's totally different, a changing of the way how you doing business, how you communicate to each others. So the core of the digital transformation and the new economy is the platform and the data. So it's a kind of a cross industry coordination is very important. So we need to build up some cross domain know-hows, yeah, and try to build up the mechanism for different sectors, including public and private and the different domain to work together. So that's the the aim. And yeah, it's a little bit. Yeah, 3 arrows. To help industry success at digital transformation, we need to strengthen the core values, continue to strengthen core business value, and expand to high value added sectors. That's in Taiwan. We try to upgrade our value chain from manufacturing to the service level. Yeah. And the second one is smart agile process, adapting new digital technologies to improve efficiency and the services quality. Yeah, but I think we can adapt the technology only if we need that. We don't want to do digital transformation just for technology. We adapt the technology because we need that. So it needs to be very cautious to do that. We doing these works not for technology. Yes, for our value, for our goal, we are going to purchasing. And the third arrow is digital marketing management. We leverage in digital marketing tools to better services and to our key customers and business partner. So we set up, it is very important to know how we are positioning right now. Yeah, for industry and for enterprise in Taiwan, we set up a kind of a index. Yeah, we name it Taiwan Digital Transformation, TDX. That's an index framework, including 3 dimensions. One is digital input. It measures enterprise investment in digital tools and resources, even including the cultivation of the talents. And the second part is the digital maturity. The index can evaluate the enterprise digital maturity level, what level the digital the enterprise is positioning right now. And the third one is digital impact. Of course, it's a journey, so we are focusing on the second maturity, digital maturity index. It includes the people, process, and the tech. Those three factors, from our point of view, are the key successful factors. For example, the consensus within the government, consensus within the enterprise, and the vision and the strategy. And in the process, it includes the internal process and the external process. I think the flow, the domain, the working flow, no matter manufacturing or services providers, the working flow are very important. How to make them smoothly flow and upgrade to the value created chain ecosystem. And the tech, it related to what kind of technology you are adapt. Of course, the data safety and the system integration are very important within this index. So the index journey, it is good for the small and medium enterprise to evaluate. So we see many enterprise, they are from the hesitation level, and to adapt the TDX, how to evaluate and clarify what is their position, and then set up goal and reallocate their resources, and then take action. So I think, and another issue is for the data governance. Because although we have already adapted some program for to let the enterprise or government get on the track of the digital transformation, the journey of the digital transformation. But I think the infrastructure, not only limited to the physical infrastructure, but the some kind of soft power infrastructure is important. That's regulation and legislation. Of course, the data, as I mentioned before, the flow and the data and the platform will be the core of the new kind of model. So I think they are. I think it is very complicated, as we have heard during these 2 days. I think right now the problem are very complicated. Because it's caused from different layers and it kind of matrix problems. So we need to set up the good data governance mechanism, including the personal data protection and the open data policy and the data governance procedure. Of course, the broad Data Act. So I think that is very important. Because we are now facing the challenges. We are now almost going to the 6G era, right? And the IoT is everywhere, and even the AI has already emerged. So I think the 6G network is the AI network. So beyond technology aspect, the adoption of new technologies raised many new legal policy and the regulatory challenges, broad and complex in scope. So one of the biggest challenges broad about the new technology is the question of trust. So how to build up the trust environment, how can I say, as we mentioned about trustworthy AI and responsible AI, that's important as these technology are being deployed across various sectors. Cybersecurity is a primary condition for trustworthy AI and technology. And AI may open new maybe we need to avoid the manipulate and abuse of the new technology. So I think the security, data protection, and the data governance and the protection of privacy is the very important. And there is a need to discuss the digital forensics and in regard to the new technology. Yeah, because it is related to the privacy and the data protection. So I think, there are so many challenges. So if we are going to set up some national program for the digital transformation, I think it's important, and maybe the TDX can share some experience to you. But besides that, the environment and the soft power of the infrastructure, we need to set up some appropriate legislation and mechanism. That's important. Yeah, so that is my sharing. Yes, thank you.
Okay, right, so this is your chance to have a say, and I know, like, for example, I'm just having a look around and I sort of see several of my Pacific colleagues in the audience, and I know that some of them have also are actually also on this digital transformation journey, because I heard about them during the first 2 days. And so if you have any comments or any questions, please.
Okay. Hello everyone. My name is Isan, and maybe I would tell something about people on my rural area. It's like some small island in my country on a rural area. There's something about these people. The people there think about have a slowly life and have a conventional life is still giving them a money. So yeah, about the digital transformation, it's quite far from them. And then about the infrastructure, it's very basic for them. They use it for a basic activity like watching a YouTube and something like that, but they don't take it seriously to have some economic issues to giving more value for their life, to give some more money with the application. So what do you think about, maybe not, I don't know about the Cook Island, but maybe there's some similarity, but there are some rural area and there are some isolating island. How we can change the mind of the people for the small island or rural area about the digital is very fast forward now, and we need to able to ready to take it granted everywhere you are, and then it have some value for your life to give more money about the next future. I guess something like that.
Just to sort of look at it from a native perspective, with Pacific Islands, very laid back, but it doesn't. I mean, the digital world is already imposed on us already, and I mean, we're in the Cook Islands, for example, we're very much we're quite digitally advanced, and so it doesn't matter that that people may not. And I mean, I know there are still people who don't have they don't. There are too many. There are so many people for example, on Rarotonga, who don't have internet in their homes. So the only time they actually sort of like have the internet is actually sort of like through a cafe or something like that. But everyone has a phone. Okay, honestly, kids have a phone. So they might not have a landline in their home, but they'll have a mobile. They'll have a smartphone too. So like they're becoming digital natives, even though they're it doesn't matter where they are. And like, for example, we have 13 outer islands, and the outer islands are also being connected to 4G as we speak. And so that they too are sort of like getting really speedy internet. So yeah, life is changing. Yeah, it doesn't sort of get over.
Thanks, Maureen. I think from mainly the work that we've done in rural areas, I think there's 3 points that stand out to me. The first is that we need to make digital real and relevant to these people. Often we talk in the abstract about AI, 5G, big data, but explain this is how you can improve access to public services, how you can make more customers for your business. As Jeff mentioned as well, elements like vital statistics can have huge multipliers for people's lives and their livelihoods. The second, and a lot of work that we do is obviously on the skills piece, like how do you build skills and literacy, but also look at kind of community champions. So, find people in the community who are trusted ambassadors and advocates for digital. Often government and others may not have credibility or relationships in these communities, but a local farmer or a village chief or an elder can be a really powerful conduit for this piece. The final thing is, I think we need to recognize that digital is not homogenous. It's really varied depending on the context. So really engaging with, what is relevant, what is the way of doing digital in some of these communities. So things like business models for digital products and services may need to be changing. How you engage with the market may need to change. One good parallel is we do a lot of work in agricultural development. And if you're a smallholder farmer, your income is very, very small. So you've got very little income to actually invest in, drones, tractors, this kind of stuff. So we increasingly see things like subscription models popping up. So there's a really cool startup in Africa called Hello Tractor, because they know that farmers can't afford tractors, so they have a community tractor and you hire it by the hour or you pay a subscription to it. Increasingly with digital tech as well, there's probably models like this that we can look at, because often being able to afford access to digital services is not going to happen. But can we look at new ways of working, new business models that could be quite exciting for these kind of communities too?
Just picking up a little bit on your question, and thank you very much for it. There are, of course, some islands of the Pacific and some locations where there is no electricity. So then the internet becomes completely irrelevant. And this is an experience I had last week in Papua New Guinea. Even in the capital city, the power goes off on a regular basis, like daily the power goes off. So, there are some other challenges before you even get to the issue of 4G, 5G, 6G in a number of the Pacific nations. So I just put that on the table as well. In Papua New Guinea, for birth registration, the mobile kits I mentioned earlier, they have battery packs and they have solar panels that they use. It's a 2-hour walk from the nearest town into a village, and it's not walking down a highway or even a track. So there's all sorts of challenges that need to be addressed. So thanks.
Yes, thank you for the question. As I have mentioned, that the technology is not the purpose, not the goal. So it all depends on what kind of value you are going to create and what kind of business you are going to do and what kind of life you are going to have. So I think we see a technology as tool and how to empowerment to our business, our life, and our value. Yeah. So yeah, for example, it is in Taiwan, there are also rural areas, our East Coast, Hualien, Taitung, and it is, I think, use technology as a tool is easy for tourism and agriculture and other specified domains. So it all depends on how you create your value. So it is easy for us to go to Hualien and Taitung for travel, and there are new kind of a digital nomad. Have you heard about that? Workation. You can work everywhere and live a life just like vacation. Yeah, that's workation. Yeah. So I think maybe we can create some new model for living and for doing business. So technology is not the purpose. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
So, and then, because I'm right here. Sure, absolutely.
Kia ora tātou, thank you very much, our panel members, and hello to everyone. My name is Wetu and I'm a council member of Internet New Zealand along with Jeff. Now, my question today to the panel and perhaps anyone who's here is, in Aotearoa, we have accepted that AI and the internet is part of our life, but as an ethnic minority within our own country, we are now struggling with the question of how are we going to protect our cultural knowledge online. So that's my question. Are you aware of any policies that anyone in this room may be working with? We're currently engaged in many government departments asking for policy papers and research on this. How can we protect our cultural knowledge against AI, if you like, against robotics, basically people who do not live our values, but are now fast becoming the experts thanks to this wonderful technology.
Okay, so who would like to?
Just very briefly, what you're talking about, that one of the things that we're actually sort of like very concerned about, of course, is ensuring that our culture is sort of like maintained in light of the, you know, sort of like the other invasions of other technologies that that abound. But I think that I don't think that even in the Cook Islands we've actually got anything that's specifically a policy on this, and it's definitely something that we'll add that to the list of things that always seem to be building up on, and it's something that we need to incorporate into the strategy in regards to, you know, how we can maintain this. So is there?
I can try. It's a really important question. As a bit of background, we ran a survey across about 50 island states over the course of last year to young people 18 to 35 in these island states, because we recognise that as quite an underheard voice. Recognising that, and this is a digital survey, so we used WhatsApp, Telegram, and Facebook Messenger as a kind of chatbot to engage these young people, and they talked about the benefits of digital communication, businesses. But many of them also highlighted issues of alienation, but also a loss of heritage and cultural value. We're going to actually release a report on this next month on this. And that was a really interesting piece. That it was a really strong factor across this young people. They want to become more connected to their cultural heritage through digital, but they also don't want digital to take away that heritage either. And there's another opportunity that they also saw is how can we actually share this heritage with the world? So we see a few, for example, island state singers, you know, are now trending quite heavily on social media and getting their music into the global community. So there's power and potential there too. Firstly, very happy to link you up to some colleagues at UNESCO who obviously lead on the kind of cultural piece within the UN. But there are a few things that we'll see and that could be relevant. The first is, how do you make these tools align with cultural aspects? So the Gates Foundation and Mozilla have a project called Common Voice, and they've been funding training data sets in Swahili and other East African languages to actually start building this kind of database to make sure that actually these voices and perspectives aren't left behind. We're doing quite a bit of work on this as well, including you know, non-spoken languages, like how do you enshrine some of this stuff into the next generation. The second is also, how do we protect this stuff for future generations? And we haven't seen answers to that. We talk often about things like the metaverse, which is interesting, but I don't think is enough yet. And also the metaverse may even be a 5, 10, 15-year proposition. You know, we're looking at 50, 100 years potentially. One interesting parallel that I've seen is in northern Norway, you have what's called the Seed Vault, the Svalbard Seed Vault, which is managed by the International Crop Trust. And what they've been doing is they take a seed from every community around the world and they store it, and then they can often preserve seeds for future generations. And the first time this was actually used was, I think, 2 years ago in Syria, where they actually withdrew seeds from the seed bank to germinate a crop that had actually been lost in Syria. They have it in northern Norway because it's very cold and they can store data very well. They're also starting to build equivalent databases for music, for culture, for other aspects. So how do we protect this stuff for 200, 300, 400 years? We're not looking at cloud, we're looking at microfilm. So there's this kind of protection piece that I think is really exciting too. So it's a very long way of saying I don't think there's many answers out there, but very happy to connect to other people working in this space. That could be quite useful. Anyone else? It's quite a tough question. So.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yes, it's really a tough question. So that is why I mentioned that when we plan the national scale plan, from one hand, we need to make the usage of the technology, but from the other hand, we need to provide the mechanism of protection of the traditional heritage and the traditional culture, especially under the cultural diversity philosophy, right? So I think we set up some legislation, including the copyright and IPR protection and database protection and something like that. So at the same time, we can not only push the usage of the technology, but also we need to provide this kind of mechanism to protect our traditional culture. Yeah.
Okay, well, we have 5 minutes left, so I think what we might do is just have a bit of a summary from everyone. I'm really pleased with the questions that have come from the audience. Have been, it's been great to sort of like get an idea of people's perspectives of Pacific Islands and sort of like what our expectations are. And I sort of meant to make mention of the fact that in the Cook Islands, for example, as we're actually sort of like moving towards this digital transformation, our outer islands, 13 little islands, and sort of like they range in population from about 50 on one island to about sort of like a 1,500 on one of the larger ones. But all the outer islands are 100% solar powered. And that was one of the things that was sort of like made, was one of the sort of like building blocks towards going into digital government and government services, and making sure that our outer island populations were also enabled with regards to their contacts with government. So the electricity is on the islands, and now they're going towards improving the services, sort of internet services. So this is just on our island, in our country, and I know that it's also happening in other countries within the Pacific. So, you know, the region is becoming more digital. The region is becoming sort of like more sort of accepting towards, going on online, and we, at the same time, we need to, as Betty said, we need to protect those things that are important to us as a country.
Thanks, Maureen, and thank you all for your questions and your participation. From my side, just 3 quick closing points. I think it's been highlighted today and also through the conference, is that often technology is a comparatively easy bit. The harder bit is the mindset shift, the behavior change, how we break down silos, how we make this stuff real and relevant to people. So not being led by solutions, but focusing on people's needs and problems and the context. The second is we do a lot of work around what we call digital public infrastructure and digital public goods. Not every country is on this digital journey. Absolutely no country has figured it out, but we can learn from each other, and we can even borrow or steal with pride from each other as well. So if there's a component that works well elsewhere, like a civil registration component, can we open source that and use that in another country? So a lot of work that we've been doing in India around the G20 presidency is around digital public infrastructure. So these shared components that can be applied between countries so people don't have to start from scratch each time. And for me, particularly looking in the region, there's probably a really exciting regional approach here. How do you bring countries together through economies of scale so that you're not all procuring from the same people, and you've got a more strategic and regional basis for this stuff as well? And then finally, we publish each year what we call a Human Development Report, which is tracking the state of human development in every country around the world. And it highlighted last year what we call an uncertainty complex. So challenges of polarization, distrust, mistrust, climate change, conflict is creating this real issue of uncertainty around where we go as a global community. We've also seen reversals in human development progress in about 90% of countries around the world, and 2020 saw the first increase in global extreme poverty for 2 decades. So we've got a real challenge globally to face. But in our research, we've also found 3 I's that I think are quite relevant and particularly driven by digital. The first is insurance. So we need social protection. So we need to support those most at risk of being left behind. And digital can be a really powerful tool here for payments, for other mechanisms. The second is we need investments. So digital, again, can be driving new ways of funding and financing, crowdfunding, venture capital, patient capital, and other aspects. And then the third I is innovation. So we need new ways of working, thinking, and living to actually try to tackle some of this uncertainty and to hopefully get us back on track towards the Sustainable Development Goals. To those 3 I's, I'd also add one more, which is inspiration. We really want to look to communities like you all to learn what's happening, what's working, so we can learn from this and also champion it too. So always keen to keep in touch. Let us know what you're working on, and also very keen to connect you with others in our network as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Callum. I think the main takeaway that I've taken from today is really around the diversity within the Pacific. So there are 22 countries and territories. Each one is completely different. They range in size from 2,000 in Tokelau to maybe 9 million, maybe 10 million, maybe 11 million in Papua New Guinea, depending on what statistics you look at. The languages are diverse, and also the infrastructure and the conditions in each of those countries is diverse. So when we're talking about national digital transformation on small island developing states, we're talking about a range of different circumstances. And the second point I'd like to leave us with is digital is not always the answer. And if you don't have a good civil registration system in your country, if you're not counting all of the babies and you're not counting the people when they pass away, then you can't have a digital identity system, particularly death registration. If the identities are not turned off when someone passes away, then the digital identity system is rubbish. So you've got to get the basics right first. Thanks.
Yes, although we are talking about the technology-driven transformation, but I always bear in mind that the most important thing is the value we are going what is the value we are going to create, and what kind of a life we are going to have. So I think when we are on the journey of the digital transformation, we need to make balance for using technology and the inclusion, and set up appropriate governance mechanism for all the works and the implementation. Then we can we just see technology as a tool and not the purpose. Yeah, that is what I always bear in mind. Thank you.
So just to close, thank you so much for being with us. I hope you enjoyed your hour with us, and that you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.